Hi everyone, this is my April wrap up, so if you're wondering what on earth I'm doing when I've already released my May TBR, I know. Technically today is the last day of April, it is the 30th, so tonight I'm hoping to finish this little number, and the rest is history by Jodie Taylor. This is book 8 in the St. Mary's Chronicles. Last night it ripped my heart out, stomped all over it, and then tore it into tiny little pieces. So I have feelings about this book. But I can't tell you anything without totally spoiling the rest of the series. But yeah, definite feelings going on here. But I'm hoping to finish this tonight because these books I whiz through so quickly because they're just so easy to read. So, what did I manage to read in April? Let's have a look. 2 comics. First up, Runaways number 8 and Xena volume 3 of series 4. This is the rebooted series of Xena. So effectively we've retconned everything and started afresh, and things are slightly different. I have missed issue 2. I'm not quite sure how I've managed to do that, but it didn't bother me. I managed to pick up the story quite easily from here and just carry on. It's quite nice seeing how characters that we didn't know for quite a while appear earlier, and how Xena is slightly different in this retelling. And then volume 8 of Runaways. This is part 2 of Best Friends Forever series, and I quite like this one because there's a lot of building up going on in here, but it's nice seeing some of the character development, some of the relationship stuff going on. I just really enjoy the Runaways, I really do. I managed to read State of Sorrow this month by Melinda Salisbury. This was the Fairy Loot book of March. Yep. I enjoyed it to start off with. Then it turned into what seemed to be an election campaign, which I wasn't interested in. Thankfully, it didn't go down that line and remained quite refreshing and good to read. Some of the plot points were a little obvious. There were some things that happened that was like, yep, saw that coming, called that, miles off. Some of the characters are a little bit black and white, but, you know, that can be a good thing. But I was interested in this. I'm not sure if I'll pick up the sequel. I don't know if I want to see more of Sorrow's Tale. But this was a very entertaining read for the majority of it. I don't think it was particularly slow to start off with. There was a lot to establish, and I think it was done very well, very clearly. And I was certainly really interested to see how this world, this kingdom that had been stuck in a state of grief for 18 years, how they were going to respond to change. Didn't quite happen, but there's certainly elements of change coming into effect, and I'm sure we'll see a lot more of that in book 2. But as usual, there's a lot more going on in this book. It's not just about grief and loss and coming out of that. It's also about drug addiction. That's quite a big part in here, and it's not just in the obvious way as well. There are subtle drug addictions going on, which is very, very clever. It's also about secrets and lies and politics. And like I say, there is kind of an election campaign in there as well. So, quite an interesting read. And if that sounds like something for you, give it a go. Don't be put off. Death of a Travelling Man was from my TBR jar this month. It's an MC Beaton. This didn't take me very long to read. They're very enjoyable. This is actually one of the really good ones. I did enjoy this one quite a lot. It's an earlier one as well, which might have something to do with it. But I really enjoyed how it sort of played with some of the stereotypes associated with travelling people. But also I really enjoyed Hamish's dogged determination to prove that he's right this time. It was just really, really enjoyable, and you certainly learnt a little bit more about other characters within the village that I've not really got to know previously. Beauty and the Beast book of the film. This was a book I just picked up because obviously Beauty and the Beast, Disney, yeah, I'm happy. But I'm afraid if you were looking for more intimate details, more character development, more behind the scenes stuff that had been cut from the film version, you're not going to get it. This is literally blow by blow, almost word for word, the film that you see on the screen. So if you want to read the film rather than watch it, this is the book for you. But to be honest, it didn't give me anything extra. I might as well go and watch the film again. This month we managed to finish Electric Dreams by Philip K. Dick. This is 10 short stories that have been put together for the Channel 4 series of the same name. I hope to do an in-depth review on this at some point, I just haven't got around to it yet. Effectively, these are short sci-fi stories from the 50s through to possibly the 60s, but they are very, very early ones. Some are only a few pages long, some are short little novellas, as it were. Each one has an introduction by the person who adapted it for the screen, why they adapted it, what stuck with them about it, which is very interesting, gives you a little bit of insightfulness to the episode if you've watched it. And certainly these do hold up an awful lot to today as well. The stuff that Philip K. Dick was writing about back in the 50s, it's still relevant today. It's still terribly close to home. And certainly some of the stories that have been changed slightly for the screen, they're really terrifying because you can see our world totally reflected in them. And yet these were written in the 50s, like I say, and it's just like, that's insane that we are still doing the same mistakes. We still have the same fears going on, that we haven't really changed much as a species, which is terrible. But yeah, if you want some proper classic short stories, sci-fi based, some on, well, the majority of them are set on Earth at some point in our history. I would say some are recognisably written in the 50s America, that there's very much that kind of influence to them, which I would say is something that the TV series really did improve on. But this is as classic as you could get. This is as hardcore sci-fi without being Arthur C. Clarke, based in fact. Yeah, I would highly recommend these to people who even don't read sci-fi. Certainly there is a short story in here that you will enjoy. I read Storm Dancer by J. Christoph. This was a copy from the library, hence I don't have it with me. But it's book 1 in the Lotus War trilogy, I think now. I wasn't quite sure what to expect from it, so I obviously sort of an Eastern influence on it with mythology and all that. Turns out there's a griffin, there's steampunk, the world is dying, and there are gods and goddesses in this world and demons. So it's a real mixed bag of Eastern culture with the steampunk elements. There have been some very negative reviews about this story on Goodreads. They have very valid points about the use of Japanese language, that if they're trying to give us a flavour of it, then they're doing it wrong because that's not how Japanese people speak. And it's like, well, hang on, are they speaking English with Japanese words thrown in for mix, or are they speaking Japanese and it's just been translated for us? And it was on about how some of the Japanese words actually mean something different, and actually some would be pronounced differently. So there was a lot of muddle going on. And having read the book, yes, I would agree with a lot of what was being said. There was also complaints that everything was described in minute detail to start off with. Well, it's world building. You either enjoy it or you don't, I think. For me, I didn't have a problem with the world building. It wasn't too slow for me. It was nicely detailed without being too excessive. I enjoyed it. The other thing I'd find is the use of language in there. Okay, yes, it's probably wrong Japanese grammatically, if that's a phrase. But if you want to introduce Western people into an Eastern culture and their language, I don't want to say this without being insensitive, but effectively, because of the way that the two languages are so different from each other, for it to be understandable for both, but also give a flavour of the other culture, you kind of have to almost fudge the languages together so it flows for both. So I can see why it is a problem, because I suppose if you're going to use a native language, you should do it properly, as Diana does in Outlander. But even she didn't get it right first time round, and it's been corrected and people have helped to sort it. But you can read a whole paragraph in Gaelic in Outlander and not have a clue what's being said to you. Whereas in Storm Dancer, there wasn't the need to alienate you as a reader, or as even a character in there. So I think the native language was used more as a flavour of the whole atmosphere, just to draw you in a little bit without completely alienate you. So that's my stand on that. As I saw it, it was a fun fantasy steampunk story involving mythical creatures, gods and goddesses, and a heavy Eastern influence on it. I enjoyed it, but I can understand why there are problems for people. Frustratingly though, it's the first of a trilogy, and yes, I could leave it where it is, but I kind of want to know a little bit more. So I'm going to have to go and get the second one out. Yay! And then finally, I have started The Golden Talk by Julian May. I am on page 156. This isn't as easy to read as my Jodie Taylor, but I am enjoying it nevertheless. It is book 2 in the Saga of the Exiles, so this will go on to my May TBR, and I will carry on reading it. So there we are. That's my April wrap-up. A bit of a mess because I didn't actually manage to achieve everything that was on my original TBR for the month. I haven't read The Cruel Prince yet. I had 2 books there. I think it was 2 books. Certainly This Savage Song I DNF'd and took back. And there's been a few books this month that I haven't actually read for one reason or another. I'll give it a go another time. Let me know what you read in April, please. Is there anything that I've read and you think, yeah, I kind of like the sound of that, or nope, that's not my cup of tea? Let me know, that'd be great. Let me know if there's anything that you think I should have on my radar for reading in future TBRs. That would be lovely. Always happy to explore new books. As always, my social media links are in the description box down below, as is the link to my book blog, where there is more ramblings from me on books. Thank you very much for watching, and happy reading. Bye.